Years ago, when Legendary Tier first was added to World of Warships Legends, the Yamato, the Grossaker first, and the Alaska were the first three ships to debut. I decided I wanted to take a look at the Alaska today. You see them every now and then at the Legendary Tier, but Yamato is ubiquitous. It's always been played ever since the start of the tier and always will be played. I think it'll always be relevant too because of its gun size, the 460 millimeter guns that overmatch 32 millimeter armor plating. Still to this day, and probably forevermore, a very common plate at the tier, particularly on the bows and sterns of most of the battleships. And so that overmatch will probably keep Yamato relevant for as long as this game exists. Grossa Kurfürst, on the other hand, is still in a bit of a sorry state. It did get a buff, mostly to its HP, so that some HP was removed from the superstructure, thereby making it a little bit more tanky. But it still only got 2 heals base for some reason, where every other battleship except Yamato has 3. And it's also got a rather pitiful 60-second duration on its otherwise excellent sonar. I think both of those things on the GK need to be buffed. There needs to be another heal, and the sonar duration time needs to be increased. I understand that it spots ships at, 6 kilometers, and torpedoes even further out. So it's a powerful sonar, but, we have things like Z52, which has essentially the same sonar, and it certainly lasts for more than 60 seconds. I think especially with the upcoming debut of Preußen in the next update, GK could use a buff to its sonar and to its repair party count. Alaska, on the other hand, I think is in a fine state. It received a buff some time ago. Not sure why. It was a powerful cruiser before then. But now, of course, it's pretty great. And our first shot against the Yamato, you wouldn't necessarily know it. Only 6,700 damage, but we're going to get some nice juicy salvos as this game goes on. It is going to end up being a little bit of a blowout that we are going to help facilitate ourselves. Normally, I don't really like to put blowouts on the channel, but I've had nothing except blowouts since probably Monday. The gameplay has deteriorated quite significantly, at least in my experience, for this final week of the ongoing update before the new one. It's almost like the update has already dropped with the way people are playing, and it's been a bit of a struggle to record interesting matches. Hopefully this one will do the trick, though. Minnesota coming into the picture. He's going to give us broadside. You don't want to do that to Alaska. Its 305 millimeter guns are perfectly capable of chunking battleships, particularly if they're flat and you aim into the upper belt armor. The shells fall a little bit far back on that Minnesota, but they do 13,000 damage. And at this point, the majority of the enemy team is actually over here. We've got an enemy Alaska sailing into the cap. We've got another cruiser about to sail into the cap, and then we've got that Yamato and that Minnesota somewhere out there. So we're going to go forward now. If we do, I think only the enemy Alaska will be able to shoot at us, given the island there. That's what we want to try to do, is isolate 1v1s, especially so we can take down this Alaska and maybe move into the cap ourselves. We only have one destroyer on the team, and he's outside of the cap, I think trying to maybe torpedo the Alaska. I think he did succeed in torpedoing the red battleship that sunk, pushing into the Alpha Cap. Alaska, meanwhile, is angled, so the AP isn't as effective as it could be. But if we aim up into the superstructure, we should be able to chunk that. Somebody chunks him good there, and we're able to secure our first kill with that rear turret of justice. Now, the A-cap is unoccupied by any reds, although there is still a Dalian outside on the perimeter. Those are becoming more and more ubiquitous as the days go on and the update wanes. And of course, the Dalian has a lot of torpedoes that we need to be careful of. We were waiting to go dark before we turned back in. Don't want to go flat broadside to a Yamato, even at 15 kilometers. And even if he does have a Borgonia right in front of his face. Speaking of which, the Borgonia is, of course, coated in 32 millimeters of armor everywhere. And so I have a funny feeling he's not going to be standing up to the predations of Yamato too well. Maybe we ought to shoot at that Yamato, but then again, maybe not. maybe we should keep our approach toward this capture circle concealed, particularly because it does look like Yamato is going to take out the Borgonia. And then note there's another battleship off to the right-hand side of the screen, and you can just see that island on the right-hand side. He's about to sail behind that island and then come out in front of the Yamato, which I was thinking at the time may prompt the Yamato to turn and bow tank that guy, which means he'll be giving broadside to me. Speaking of which, don't give broadside to the Alaska if you're in a light cruiser. 3 citadels on the Dalian as the Yamato citadels us in return, but also does exactly what I was predicting and turn bow tanking the battleship that has pushed around the island there. So he's giving broadside to me at 9 kilometers. Not a great thing. The Alaska's AP is more than capable of citadeling Yamato, and even though he did get a good hit on us initially, we've tightened up the angle here, and we are able to protect ourselves reasonably well. No citadels on the Yamato, but we are able to finish him off, and that just leaves the Dalian over here on this side of the map. Currently, it's a 5v4 in favor of the blue team, but of course that could change very quickly. There is a cruiser inside of the Bravo cap that appears to be giving broadside to the last remaining enemy battleship all the way over there near Charlie. Whether that friendly cruiser is spotted or not, I don't know, but speaking of things that are not spotted, the Dalian, he was last seen hanging around this island, and I've got the sonar running in anticipation that certainly torpedoes must be coming through this gap. But there are no torpedoes to be seen, only a smoke screen. And of course, the Alaska is equipped with radar, which normally you would use to find enemy destroyers, but it works perfectly well against smoked up cruisers like Dalian, who is, for the moment, protected by that rock, but reversing away from it. And now that we can see his broadside, we're going to shoot at it again. And of course, no surviving that. Not from the Alaska. 2 more citadels. That's a total of 5 just against the Dalian. And we're up to 92,000 damage done. This game looks like it's going to go in favor of the blue team. There's only a battleship, a cruiser, and a DD left. And we've secured both Alpha and Bravo. So we're going to head off to the Bravo side of the map, since all of the enemy ships appear to be near Charlie, including the Conqueror, which is the only spotted one, but there's an unspotted cruiser somewhere behind him, plus the last remaining enemy destroyer. We're about 2 minutes away from our next radar charge. Hopefully, we won't need it. Meanwhile, we've got Colombo in front of us, going somewhat broadside to Conqueror, and then smoking up. Perhaps not the best choice. He did get chunked there, maybe by the Conqueror, maybe by the cruiser. Honestly, couldn't tell, but it would be quite unusual to see a Conqueror shooting AP. It's not unknown. Sometimes they do, but mostly you see the HE. Speaking of the Conqueror, he's slightly angled, so of course the damage from the AP is going to fall off. We could switch to the HE, but I have no idea where that enemy cruiser is, and I pretty much want to keep the AP chambered for that guy's benefit. Speaking of which, there it is, Zhao, broadside to us, and we lose vision before we can shoot. Meanwhile, the cracked Johann de Witt is moving in. He was being shot at by the Zhao. Surely he's unspotted now, and he's probably launching planes at the Conqueror, who we nearly take out, but not quite. Instead, he goes down to, I think, the fires, maybe set by the Johann de Witt. That's okay, though. As a consolation, we've got a Zhao who is turning broadside at the exact right moment for us. A little bit behind on the lead, but the Zhao's citadel is huge, and so we hit it again. 6 citadel for this game, 115,000 damage done. Not the most damage you've ever seen, but highly efficient damage. Always remember that you're not rewarded for the total raw number of damage that you deal at the end of the game. Instead, you're rewarded by what percentage of the enemy's ship's HP you take off. And citadels, being critical hits, well, they remove a significant percentage of the enemy's HP. And we've gotten 6 citadels so far, so that's pretty good damage. Highly efficient, highly XP earning damage. Now, if we can find that enemy destroyer whose torpedoes are sailing for our face, then we'll get even better XP. we'll be able to squeeze through this gap between the torpedoes. Was a little bit worried about the Shimakaze there. Seemed a little bit reckless, but I guess he knew the torpedoes weren't going to hit him. Meanwhile, Zhao goes down. There's still 5 minutes left in the game, so hopefully whoever turned off crossplay is on the red team and has learned their lesson thoroughly, but probably not. For the first time in this battle, we're going to switch to HE. It wasn't really necessary at any other point, although it might have netted us better damage against the Conqueror, who knows. But certainly we want the HE for this last remaining enemy destroyer, whose torpedoes did come through this gap just moments ago. It's a Holland. His torpedoes don't hit the hardest, but they are quick, and sometimes I find them difficult to dodge if you don't know where they're going to come from. They probably wouldn't sink us unless he got a lot of hits, but, we don't want to take any chances. We deploy the radar a little bit too early. It's got a 10-kilometer range. We've got a 10.8-kilometer detect, so the Holland is somewhere between 10 and 10.8 km, and there he is. Turns out he's AFK. He wasn't a moment ago. We saw his torpedoes come through the gap, but I guess he decided that there was no winning this match, and so he was just going to quit and net himself 0 XP, 0 credits, and go into the negatives on all that for all his troubles. I really don't understand why players leave the battles early like this. I know some people don't think it's that big of a deal, but, just go out with your guns blazing, Don't deny yourself the little XP and little credits that you would otherwise earn on your losing team. But of course, Holland is still AFK, and so we're able to take him out quite easily for the last kill of the game, ending things and giving one of our teammates the Helping Hand medal. How nice for them. There's the results. Not the flashiest damage you've ever seen, but really good XP at 3,100 because of the efficient damage dealing against the cruisers. Plus the free damage pinata that was the Holland. That probably took us over the 3K mark. Thanks for that, Holland, and for turning off crossplay, whoever did. Allowed me to get a nice result in the Alaska, which, to this day, is still a pretty good ship. I don't know why I don't see it talked about as often or played as often. But, it's effective. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.